In the shadows of Victorian England, a dark trade flourished, one born from desperation and public shame. It was called baby farming, a business that preyed on the most vulnerable by promising care, but often delivering death. And at the center of this grim industry was a woman who presented herself as a respectable nurse, a savior for unwanted children. But behind the gentle facade of Amelia Dyer was a monster. In the spring of 1896, when a bargeman on the River Thames pulled a small weighted package from the water, he uncovered the first piece of a horrifying puzzle. Inside was the body of an infant girl, but this was only the beginning. What authorities would soon uncover was a horror beyond their darkest nightmares, a single woman responsible for the deaths of hundreds of children. This is the story of Amelia Dyer, the Victorian nurse who became one of history's most notorious serial killers. The ogress of reading. How could something so terrible happen on such a scale? To understand, you have to look at the world Amelia Dyer inhabited. Victorian England was a society of rigid moral codes, wherefore an unmarried woman becoming pregnant was a catastrophe, a sentence of social ruin. The law offered little protection. The Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834 was a particularly cruel piece of legislation. It absolved fathers of illegitimate children from legal or financial responsibility, placing the entire burden on the mother. Faced with public shame and financial ruin, many of these desperate women were forced into grim, prison-like workhouses or turned to a growing, unregulated industry known as baby farming. For a fee, women called baby farmers would take in these infants, promising to care for them or find them good adoptive homes. Newspapers were filled with advertisements offering a discreet, seemingly kind solution from women like Amelia Dyer, who presented themselves as respectable, married, and eager to provide a safe home. For a desperate mother, these ads were a lifeline. She might pay a one-time fee, sometimes as much as £80, a fortune back then, truly believing her child was safe. The problem was, a single payment could hardly cover the cost of raising a child for years. For the most ruthless baby farmers, it was far more profitable if the infant didn't survive for long. Neglect and starvation became common, and the era's high infant mortality rate provided a perfect cover. It was a system ripe for exploitation, creating the perfect hunting ground for a predator like Amelia Dyer. Amelia Dyer wasn't born a monster. Born Amelia Hobley in 1837, she was the well-educated daughter of a master shoemaker who loved literature and poetry. Her childhood, however, was marked by trauma. She was the main caregiver for her mother, who suffered from severe mental illness due to typhus, and had to endure her violent fits until her death. This early experience seems to have stripped her of real emotional connection. After her first husband died in 1869, leaving her a widow with a child to support, Dyer trained as a nurse. It was then that a midwife introduced her to the much more profitable world of baby farming. At first, Dyer may have cared for the children she took in, but soon, profit became her only motive. She realized she could pocket the entire fee if the infant died quickly. Her descent began with neglect. She would let infants slowly starve, quieting their cries with a dangerous opium-laced syrup called Mother's Friend. In 1879, a doctor became suspicious of the number of infant deaths in her care and reported her. Shockingly, she wasn't charged with murder but was sentenced to just 6 months of hard labor for neglect. The experience taught her a lesson: to be more careful, avoid doctors, and dispose of the bodies herself. After her release, she returned to baby farming, but with a faster method. She no longer waited for neglect to do the work, instead murdering the infants almost as soon as she was paid by strangling them with a length of white edging tape. This became her chilling signature, a silent, brutal routine that let her take on more children and make more money. With her new method, Amelia Dyer's killing spree escalated. She moved constantly, using a string of fake names like Mrs. Thomas and Mrs. Harding to dodge parents and suspicious authorities. She placed ads in papers across the country, her words a carefully crafted lie of respectability and warmth. One of those ads was answered by Evelina Marmon, a young barmaid with an infant daughter named Doris. Trusting she was placing her child with a kind woman, Marmon handed over baby Doris and the fee. Dyer promised a wonderful life for Doris, but instead took the baby home, wrapped white tape twice around her neck, and tied a knot. She would later coldly state, "I used to like to watch them with the tape around their neck." But it was soon all over with them. The very next day, another infant, 13-month-old, Harry Simmons, met the same fate. Both of their bodies were packed into a carpet bag, weighed down, and thrown into the River Thames. For years, Dyer operated with terrifying efficiency, feigning mental breakdowns and checking herself into asylums whenever she thought the police were getting close. These breakdowns always seemed to happen just when her crimes were at risk of being exposed. While the exact number of her victims will never be known, it's estimated she murdered between 200 and 400 infants over 3 decades. Eyewitnesses even reported seeing her take in as many as 6 babies in a single day. For decades, the river had kept Amelia Dyer's secrets, but that changed on March 30, 1896. A bargeman near Reading pulled a brown paper parcel from the Thames. Inside was the body of a baby girl, later identified as Helena Fry. Wrapped around her neck was a piece of white tape. Crucially, a sharp-eyed police officer examining the damp wrapping paper found a faintly written name and address, a Mrs. Thomas, at a location in Reading. This was the breakthrough they desperately needed. The police quickly set a trap, using a young woman to pose as a new mother responding to one of Dyer's ads. When Dyer opened her door on April 3, 1896, she didn't find a desperate mother but detectives waiting to arrest her. Police who raided her home were hit by the overwhelming stench of decomposition, though no bodies were found inside. What they did find was a mountain of damning evidence: pawn tickets for baby clothes, receipts for her newspaper ads, letters from mothers asking about their children, and spools of the same white edging tape used to strangle the infant found in the river. After her arrest, police dredged the Thames and found 6 more tiny bodies, all with the signature white tape around their necks. When confronted, Dyer's confession was chillingly matter-of-fact. Referring to the white tape, she reportedly told the police, "You'll know it was one of mine." Amelia Dyer's trial at the Old Bailey in May 1896 was a media sensation. She pleaded guilty to a single murder, that of Doris Mott. Her only defense was insanity, pointing to her previous stays in asylums, but the prosecution successfully argued that her mental health crises were calculated performances to escape justice. The jury deliberated for less than 5 minutes before finding her guilty. When asked if she had anything to say before her sentencing, she simply replied, "I have nothing to say." On June 10, 1896, Amelia Dyer was hanged at Newgate Prison. The horror of her crimes sent shockwaves through Britain. The case dragged the dark, unregulated world of baby farming into the light, exposing the desperate situation of unmarried mothers. Dyer's reign of terror became a catalyst for change, leading to stricter child protection laws, including the Infant Life Protection Act of 1897 and the Children's Act of 1908. These laws gave local authorities the power to police baby farms and strengthened adoption regulations, helping to dismantle the very system that allowed a monster like Amelia Dyer to thrive. Though she was brought to justice, the story of the Ogress of Reading remains a chilling reminder of a time when society's most innocent were left completely defenseless. The story of Amelia Dyer is a dark chapter in history, but remembering these events helps us understand how far child protection has come. If you found this story as haunting as we did, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into historical true crime. Let us know in the comments what case you think we should cover next.